So, hi everyone, welcome to the Layer 2 Scalability panel. I'm Georgios. I work with Loom Network and I build sidechains and Plasma. And my main focus currently is on the variant called Plasma Cache.
Hi everyone, I'm Ben. I also work on Plasma stuff. I work on a team called Plasma Group, and we have a Plasma Cache variant that we work on. We would describe Plasma as non-custodial sidechains. Oh, and our moderator's here.
Want to give her the mic? All right, we're going to finish our introductions and then give it over to Ava. So my name is Liam. I work at L4. We're building a framework called Counterfactual, which is designed to make it easy for developers to build applications that use state channels, which is one of the kind of two primary layer 2 scaling techniques.
Hi, I'm Jack O'Halloran with Scale Labs. We do sidechains, so very focused on smart contract scaling.
Hi, I'm Mo from Seller, and we do layer 2 scaling combining multiple technologies, including state channels and sidechains. Specifically, it's Plasma semantic sidechains. And also, we are proposing this crypto economics to ensure safety of the layer 2 platform and also incentivize liquidity on there.
Hi, Jason Toich from TrueBit. We do large computations on the blockchain. So if you're running out of gas, you can call the TrueBit and keep on going.
Hi, my name is Eva. I used to work at Omisa Go, and now I'm supporting the Ethereum Foundation. Apologies for being late. I was just finishing another panel, but I'm excited to dive in. So my first question is, does scaling matter? Does it really matter? And what are users dying to scale for, basically?
Yes, I think that's why we're here. Yeah, I mean, I think we already see like a lot of what you could do with like I could talk from the TrueBit perspective, and I'll let you guys talk state channel. So we're if you want to check a proof of work inside of a smart contract, you might need to do that. There's all kinds of or I guess what I want to say. I guess this is maybe something that people are not familiar with in the layer 2 scaling space, but what TrueBit has built also is a file system, which is kind of useful for getting the data. It's combined inside of the, I guess, incentives for the solvers and verifiers, but a sort of a file system that allows you to bring the data from the blockchain or from IPFS or things like that into the system. But certainly, there's applications for that. So.
Cool. So to create some controversy, I would say no, scaling doesn't matter. Or at least this is like the wrong thinking pattern to think scaling matters. I think the correct thinking pattern should be, okay, we're building this blockchain application and we're trying to push it to mass adoption. We're trying to get a user to use it. And does this application actually able to create a value for the developers and for the users of these kind of decentralized applications? And to create that value, is scaling absolutely needed? Then in that case, yes. Like if we actually want to reach to mass adoption for the for the decentralized applications, we do need to cut down the cost. That's the first thing, right? So we cannot let the user to use this application with extremely high cost, and we also need to improve the user experiences, especially on the front of user interactions. The user interaction on blockchain is horrible these days. There's absolutely no interactions on blockchain. Now, that's the part that scaling can actually solve. So, in that front, we think that scaling technology is fulfilling the user requirement or the user need or the product need of interaction on top of blockchain. So that's kind of like my perspective on that. And specifically speaking, state channel is very good for that front. Like it's kind of enabling interactions. So, but yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump right on the controversy there and agree with you. So I think it's easy to think of scalability as a technology problem and a technology issue, and something that a bunch of researchers can figure out who really understand cryptographic techniques and scaling techniques, but it is equally a user experience problem. So we are trying at the end of the day to get users on board this platform. I saw somebody had a metric yesterday, 8,500 people have used an Ethereum dApp thus far this year. We need to have 10% month-over-month growth to make this thing what it can be. And we'll get there, but user experience matters both for developers and for the end user. If the end user has to completely change the way they use an application, we're never going to get out of this echo chamber we live in where we're creating products just for each other, where ultimately people are just trading crypto, right? So we have bigger visions. We need to make sure user experience is also a part of scalability.
So for me, I think that you need always to have a use case. So generally blockchains and scalability are usually looking for problems to solve when they have the solution already. So layer 2 solutions, they allow you to basically cut off all the mental costs from the gas costs, the transaction fees, and the finality requirements. So for example, if I have a game and I want to play a move, for example, I want to summon a monster or something, I don't want to wait 15 seconds for that. So the main problem currently is that even though we all have implementations, I believe, of schemes that work, they all have certain requirements, such as that you need to watch, for example, for example, for Plasma and state channels, you need to come online every week and watch and check that there has been no dispute or no invalid state transition. So the main problem with that is that, again, if you want to have proper security of your funds, you still need to interact with the blockchain, and this is a huge pain. So I believe it is very important to figure out a good use case, which for me the best use case is payments. So get payments done right, get a huge network, for example Lightning, or some sort of huge Plasma chain or sidechain, and use that. So my main issue with layer 2 is that we have too many solutions that cannot interoperate with each other.
So I think maybe a cool way to frame sort of the question that Eva asked is it almost feels like a chicken and egg problem, right? You have on the one hand adoption where you want people to be actually using your thing, and on the other hand you need to be able to support that usage. And so we've seen CryptoKitties, which kind of did push the usage limits of Ethereum, and that sort of made us think, oh crap, we really need to worry about scaling. And then on the other hand, now we have lots of blockchain games on Ethereum that could have more usage and still be within the gas limit, and we don't see that. So I don't think it's either or. It's we're going to see each of these things nudge each other along as we go. So for example, the Plasma implementation that my team works on, if you guys have heard about Plasma, you might have heard of this RSA accumulator, Magic Prime stuff, right? Something that we realize is literally that only matters a year after you have a huge number of users. And so we realize we don't even need to worry about that right now. But once we get users, we will need to worry about that, right? So it's very much incremental, one interacts with the other.
Yeah, I think I probably agree most with Georgios here, where it's kind of a matter of trying to figure out what are actually going to get people to actually use these things, and when you're actually looking at how we build towards getting more adoption, trying to interoperate a bit with our different solutions. The problem right now is that we all generally are saying scaling matters, and there's side chains and ways you can get rid of the necessity for having to deal with gas costs or multiple different state channel implementations, and we're kind of just going in some direction without caring for why is it that we're doing this in the first place? What is some example use cases we could not just kind of get generally working, but worked to the level of a Silicon Valley level product that's executed really well. And then when that thing starts getting traction, then growing it. CryptoKitties was a good example. There's a bit of nuance there from a product point of view because there was a lot of speculation going on and it wasn't just pure play a fun dApp. But I think probably what scale does matter, such that when we do find that useful product that we can start to grow the feedback loop on, that it doesn't fail halfway through. But it's not the be-all end-all. There needs to be a focus on actually getting that product out. And again, to George's point, we need to be able to build interoperable or at least standardized solutions so that we can get these things deployed faster, so that when we do hit the next product, we can scale with it.
So on this point of usage, layer 2 is really one of the more hyped topics in Ethereum. What do you feel about the balance between the hype and the true interest and usage for these scaling solutions today?
Anyone else want to go first?
We can start from that
Okay.
side. Yeah.
Sure. On my chance to be controversial.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think kind of to the same point. One of the problems is there's a lot of hype because these are intellectually stimulating things to work on, perhaps, and a lot of us enjoy that. But it's not necessarily the case that once these things are all like shipped and deployed, that immediately they're going to get all this usage and the world will be great and the price will go to the moon. That's not where we are. I think it's more like it's probably overhyped in that sense, but it is the case that, like I said a second ago, if we can get these things to work, it'll make it much more likely that when we start figuring out useful products for this technology to create, that we'll actually hit something of use. So I would say probably overhyped if I had to pick one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to echo that, I feel like a lot of us here are like at ETH Denver, and so many of us have gone through the colloquial rabbit hole dive, and then oh my God, we're going to replace all forms of governance with blockchains, right? So for us, for those people, it feels very hype because we know that to do that on the massive scale, we need to have scalable tooling. But the rest of the world hasn't made that click, definitely doesn't see that.
I don't think there's any hype. The hype existed a year ago when layer 2 solutions were being promoted as a one solution fits all for payments, for smart contracts, trees of plasma chains, and whatever else in the original plasma paper. I really feel that it was irresponsible over 2017 how layer 2 was pitched as a solution when it still has multiple open problems, such as watchtowers for state channels, or if you want to have multiple parties participating that they all need to sign, or for plasma that we need to have some sort of compaction of the history. And I really, really do not think it is hyped. I think it is a hard topic that simply people do not care about because somebody else will do it for them. So it really pains me almost that not enough people are working more on plasma or sidechains and so on. Because they're tough problems that were hyped. You were being told that, hey, it will solve all your problems, zero fee payments forever. But here we are with still no perfect solution.
Yeah, I agree with Georgios. I think it's absolutely not overhyped. Talk to any developer who's building a decentralized application. This is first and foremost in their mind. Right now, success equals failure in the sense that if you're too successful with transaction throughput, you're going to lose money, okay? And that's not a good dynamic for anyone. So most people I talk to, just in terms of cost, it obviously depends on your financial model, but do the math on at 10 cents a transaction, and if you do 1 per second a day, right? It's incredibly expensive. So we need to solve these problems, and there's probably, maybe only overhyped in the sense that there's a couple other very critical problems that need to be solved for, but talk to people building. We need to do this, and also I think of these as building blocks. All of us are working on different kind of ways to skin the cat. These building blocks are going to be used as part of large, ecosystems. So we talk to people building enterprise-grade decentralized applications. They are putting together very sophisticated architecture maps, and so I love the efforts here, and I just wish there were even more people here today. We need more hype in the audience.
I'm curious, what were the motivations behind, so you're building Scale, which is a solution for this kind of thing, right? What are the motivations that led to some specific applications that you think are the ones that people are trying to build that if they were to use this, they would be able to benefit from? What are the specific enterprise applications, whatever it might be?
Yeah, so great question. So we're very focused on computation. So we have a side chain. We don't have the same defense measures in terms of exits. We're going to, over time, grow security. So people are looking and coming to Scale about scaling computation. And they're also thinking about using that in conjunction with state channels, using that in conjunction with plasma, and things like music, things like gaming, solar. So thinking about how you have smaller, high-speed, lower monetary value transactions that are more computation-oriented with smart contracts on Scale, and then leveraging for pure transactions other systems that can help get real certifiable scalability. So that's what I'm seeing, and talking to people almost every day.
Are there any that are trying to use Ethereum right now, but they're just stuck, they actually can't? So they're coming to you because they need an alternative place to go to launch their business? What is there a tangible we can't use Ethereum because X, therefore we use layer 2 system?
Another great question. So we're just trying to help people that build for Ethereum. So you write something in Solidity, you want Solidity to run faster, you go put it on Scale. So we're not necessarily trying to displace anything. It's just take your smart contract and 30 seconds, you can have it up on a sidechain. So that's, I think it's just smart architects out there are saying, we need layer 2, and they look at all of these different options, and they go try to figure out how to solve the problem.
I really think we should avoid specifically talking about our project and focus on the technology stack, because we have had EVM-based chains for a while, and the most interesting part in this, so for example, we had like the Tendermint-based EVM a few years ago from Cosmos, and the POA network has had a sidechain that everybody used to buy their food. So I think it would be more interesting, like, so that we can focus on the actual technical differentiations from our solutions. Because honestly, I've had also an EVM-based sidechain that I can deploy my EVM Solidity contracts for months now. So let's pick it up.
Okay, well, let's keep the questions then in alignment with that. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
I jumped over you? Oh, it's okay. I just reacting against this comment, but I think that I agree. I think that the problem with the hype is that it blurs the distinction. So I think the more that we can focus on saying, here are the specific applications that we can solve, and here's how these solutions are different, the better off it's going to be. So I think, for when I think about, and I think it's also about us getting back to the reason, why did we start these projects in the first place, right? I mean, and I look, we're upstairs in the makerspace, building art DAOs, because that's what true. I mean, art DAO is just for people who are not familiar. I'm just talk about a specific application, a machine that makes art and then sells that art and use the revenue to, improve its own circuits and self-sustain living on the blockchain. I mean, that's really what I think. I mean, for me personally, that's what makes exciting, and that's why we built TrueBit the way that we have. It's big focusing on autonomous machines, but really and I think there's an important distinguish between sort of what's trustless and decentralized, right? So those are two different things. This is an object that just only survives on the blockchain, and it doesn't have access to a laptop or anything like that. So it's not a corporation, right? So I guess that's. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, let me revisit the question. The question is the hype versus usage, right? So for us, Cedar Network, very little people know about us. There's no hype, basically. The balance between us is that we have very little hype, but we have real usage that is already existing in our network. And in terms of hype, I really don't care. What I care about is that, first thing, can I make my users spend less using blockchain and having better user experience? Second is that can we onboard developer and let our developer have a realistic monetization path building blockchain applications? And we have both. So that's what really matters to us. And to answer Liam, your question, that is there a specific use case? Let me just take one example here. That is not possible building on Ethereum and also have high cost in traditional industry, but can be enabled by layer 2 solutions. Let me tell the audience a very simple example that is skill-based real cash game. It's fully regulated in the US. You can run it. And in the blockchain, you have very, very low overhead in terms of payment, lower overhead. And adding on state channel, you have all the interactiveness you need to build this business model. So basically, developer get higher cut, user get lower cost, and the experience is exactly the same as no more like centralized games. So that's what we are shooting for, and this is getting real usage. Just in 4 days, in our testnet app, Cedar X, we see about 1,000 users onboarding, and people are actively playing these games on our testnet. So this is like what I think matters, and I really don't care whether it's a hype or not. Yeah.
Cool. I would agree with Georgios. Let's not mention project names as much as possible.
Yeah. Right.
The next question I want to ask is, some people argue that layer 2 solutions piggybacking on layer 1 makes the root chain less secure. What is your perspective on that? And if so, is that bad?
Start from this side. You can go, Jason. Go ahead. Yeah.
So what makes the chains most secure? What's it?
So the question was, some people argue that layer 2 solutions make layer 1 less secure by piggybacking on its security. What is your perspective, and is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
False.
Can I say something? Well, there is like a, it's definitely true that maybe that's not accurate, but there is like a core nugget here which like is very important and like very valid. And basically what it is that even though you can like move transactions off chain with layer 2 solutions, because the resolution to that like make those transactions secure, because those occur on chain, like the ability to censor those transactions and cause invalid outcomes because like the right layer 2 disputes are censored from the chain, because you can use that to steal people's money, it does increase the total value of like the assets that are being transacted. So it's not that the security of layer 1 goes down, it's that the security of layer 1's compromisation has a higher reward because it means that you can compromise what's going on at layer 2 and break the security assumptions of layer 2. So it's not that the security of layer 1 goes down, it's that it needs to be high enough to support like the worst case scenario if everything goes wrong.
Basically, layer 2 security for, I think not for sidechains, but for Plasma and state channels. The case is that your value in the Plasma chain cannot, in my opinion, cannot exceed the security, the hash power, cannot exceed a minor attack on the parent chain. Because if I submit a challenge and that challenge gets censored or it gets reverted with a reorganization, basically I'm not able to get my dispute in. One thing, so the original question was that some people argue that it makes it less secure if you commit to it. So I will not say less secure, but there are certain other layer 2 approaches which use the parent chain for data availability. So not for state channels, not for sidechains, but for Plasma, we have this data availability problem. That if I make some off-chain state transition, in order to later make my exit, my withdrawal request to the chain, I need to submit like some Merkle proof or something that proves that I own the coins. This data cannot be assumed to be made available at any point. And this is, I think, in our opinion, what makes Plasma Plasma, is that you never assume that you have some sort of data availability oracle which gives you the data. So there are other variants, mainly, I believe this is based on the Stark DEX that was presented recently at Stanford, and also on the Ignis sidechain Plasma chain, which basically what they do is that they commit a Merkle root to the parent chain, but they also put all the data required for the users on chain in the call data, for example, of the transactions. And the data are not stored in a smart contract, but they're placed somewhere in the chain so users can access them. The thing is that when you store all this data on chain, effectively, if I want to save, let's say, some kilobytes of data or some megabytes, like it will fill up the block. So it doesn't reduce the security of the chain, but it reduces the usability of the chain, because essentially you're committing the data that you're committing to the chain, somehow it's equal to the data that you have on the side chain. So if you commit like megabytes, you still take up the capacity of the parent chain. And so, for example, if you take up the whole block and nobody can use it.
So I think that layer 2 can actually improve the security of layer 1. Like Ethereum isn't designed to hold as many tokens as it is. The more you build side chains and bridges and spread all the tokens out over many different places, the more decentralized we are, the more secure we are. And you know, that's I think.
The main difference between, like, in my opinion, layer 2 solutions and sidechains are not exactly the same, because sidechains do not have shared security model. Like, a sidechain has a totally different security model from the parent chain, and you happen to interact with it's not even a parent chain. It's like it's on the same level for me. You just you interoperate in a way. But like our schemes, they require the base chain to be secure. Your schemes do not, which is an interesting differentiation, I think.
We're cut on. We got to go on.
We got it. Okay.
So I guess another question around layer 1 versus layer 2 solutions. Do you think layer 2 solutions are an interim before ETH 2.0 and layer 1 scaling is solved for?
I think we're running out of time. Okay.
All right, last question. I'll repeat it. All right.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
Do you think layer 2 solutions are interim solutions before ETH 2.0 and layer 1 scaling is solved for? Yes or no, and why?
No, strictly no. They reduce the capacity, you simply bloat the chain less. Like instead of doing everything on the parent chain, you simply take all the state updates of chain and you just commit whatever needs to be done. It's in no way outshined by ETH 2.0 or any kind of scalability on the base layer. You just offload computation and that's always good.
Yeah, I think there's like a really deadly simple way of thinking about this, which is there's two key variables. There's like time to finality, and then there's the fees that you pay. So how soon after I do something is it confirmed to have been done? And when I do it, how much does it cost? No matter how fast the main chain gets, Layer 2 provides net better or net improvements. State channels make it so that once you're in a channel, the fees are 0 and the time to finality is instant, which is the best possible case of both. And Plasma makes it be the case that the fees can optionally be 0 depending on how the operator works. And it's still not instant, but the fees are optionally 0, which is just net improvement. So no matter what happens in the Layer 1 chain, even if it gets incredibly sharded and really fast, Layer 2 is still strictly necessary and a strict improvement. So it's a very simple yes for me.
Yeah, and just to adding on that, I think another thing to note is that even for Layer 1 scalability, Layer 1 scalability has a bound, right? So the direction people are going is the sharding. And sharding is essentially a parallel computing scheme. And for any parallel computing scheme, as long as there is a small portion of computation that is not parallelable, and the benefit of parallelization quickly diminishes. So in that front, like Layer 1 scaling does have a bound. The curve is going to look like this. And you need to have very, very complicated ways to try to make the system as parallelable as possible, because if you do it naively, the more shard you have, the higher percentages the unparalleled computation would be. So this is definitely something that also to keep in mind, that the Layer 1 scalability has a bound.
I think it depends on your Layer 1, because almost all these things could be integrated into the base layer. So it's sort of, you can, so yeah, I guess that it really can, but they're needed, but there are different ways that one could implement them. So you need the whole toolbox to build all the things that you want to build. All right.
Yeah. Last comment. I think in 5 years from now, if we still have 10,000 users a month, Layer 2, there won't be a need for it. If we have 200 million users a month, Layer 2 will absolutely be a critical part of this, and I think we all believe in the growth, so we're playing an important role here.
I want to thank the panelists and thank you guys for joining us.